the Agility Award 2026. This is today, the 12th of March. This is the single most important piece of information you need to know about the Agility Award. The closing date is the 23rd of April, 2026 at 5:30 in the afternoon. It's not 5:35. It's not 6. It's not 5:30 and 15 seconds. It's 5:30. It's a hard deadline. If our system clock gets to 5:30 and 0 seconds and you haven't submitted your application, it's late. You've got loads of time. You have 7 weeks. You have 7 weeks. You've no panic about it, but do not leave it to the last minute. I will advise now, we say it in the guidelines, we have a really great support team here with the comms team and at reception. If there's any difficulties, if you have any difficulties with the application form or with the guidelines or with anything else, you can contact us. If you contact us with less than 48 hours to go before that deadline, we can't promise to deal with whatever your query is. We will, of course, do our best. But if you're coming up with, particularly if you have a technical query about OLS or logging in or trying to get Microsoft Word to format it proper or whatever, that could take a while. And if you're coming to us with less than 48 hours to go, we can't promise to deal with this. So please don't leave it too late. As I say, you've got 7 weeks. There's loads of time, but that is the deadline. So very quickly, this is what I'm going to run through today: the overview and purpose of the award, the changes we've made for 2026, who can apply, the activities and costs you can apply for, supporting documents, common mistakes people make, and then just a brief, I'll give you the contact details, and then we'll do Q&A. So the overview and purpose of the award: Agility is a developmental award, and Agility is a competitive award. Developmental means it's quite broad. It can be to develop your practice, to develop your work, develop your skills. That covers a lot of things, but there are certain things it wouldn't cover. Agility is not about finishing a piece of work. Agility is not about necessarily having a thing, an object, an artwork that you have completed. That would be more of a project award. Or it's not about staging an event or staging a play. Again, it's a project award. You could stage a play. You could finish a body of work. It's about development. Anything that's developmental will score highly. And Agility is competitive. We score on 3 different criteria: artistic quality, feasibility, and meeting the purpose of the award. That loops right back into what's above. Meeting the purpose of the award is essentially how developmental is what you're proposing. If what you're proposing is artistically great, but it's not particularly developmental, it'll score well on artistic quality. It'll score poorly in meeting the purpose of the award. And it is competitive. It's not like, there's a bar, and as long as you clear the bar, you're going to get funded. That's not how it works. It's a competition. We have a budget. People apply. Everyone is scored. And within each art form, we're funding from the highest score until we run out of money. So you are literally in competition with everybody else applying, with everybody else on this call. You're in competition with people. It's a competitive award. That's how that. Now, I've a couple of figures about that later on. A couple of changes to the guidelines for this year. Please make sure, if you have applied before, please make sure that you're using the most up-to-date guidelines. The guidelines are available there. You could very easily find us on the website. Just go to funding, available funding, and it's in there, Agility Award. Make sure you're using the latest guidelines, because they're never the same year to year. We always try to tweak, try to improve things year to year for people. So make sure, if somebody sent you last year's guidelines, for instance, being helpful, that's great, but make sure you have this year's guidelines. They're on the website. So the first change is that Agility 2026 is open to applicants who have not received Arts Council funding as an individual artist or arts practitioner since the 1st of January 2016. And if you're wondering why that particular date, that is the start of the Council's 10-year strategy, which ran from 2016 to 2025. We're due a new one. And so we're saying, basically, if you got funding in the lifetime of that strategy, you can't apply for Agility. If you got funding before that, that's fine. You can apply for Agility as long as you haven't got funding in that period. Specifically, when it says an individual artist or arts practitioner, I'll get onto that on the next slide. You cannot apply for both an Agility Award and a Bursary Award in the same calendar year. There have been years when you have been able to apply for both, so just this year you can't. That means if you applied for Bursary Round 1 this year, you can't apply for Agility. If you do apply for Agility, we'll simply make your application ineligible. And it does mean that if you apply for Agility, whether you get awarded or not, you cannot then apply for Bursary Round 2. So just bear that in mind. You can't apply for both Agility and Bursary in the same calendar year. One slight change to this year, you can apply for comedy. You can apply under comedy, but there's a workaround for how you do it, which is simply that when you're selecting the art form you're going to apply with, comedy doesn't appear there. You won't see that as an option. Instead, select MDA, which is multidisciplinary arts. And if you apply under multidisciplinary arts for comedy, you can be assessed as just comedy and not actually multidisciplinary arts. It's a workaround just to deal with the system we have for the moment. As always, the guidelines are available on the website there. If you've any questions, if you can't find them, send an email into reception, or we can easily send them out to you, or send you a link. Who can apply for Agility? You have to be a professional artist. What that means is you have to be actively pursuing a career as an artist in any art form. You have to consider your arts practice to be your main profession or career. But this applies even if your work in the arts is not your main source of income, or if you have other employment. And you have to be recognized by your peers as a professional practicing artist. You can be a starting artist. You don't have to have works hanging in the Louvre. You don't have to be going on tour every other week, but you have to actually be practicing. The Agility Award is for people who are already artists. It's not for people who would like to be artists. Again, you don't have to have a huge body of work. You just have to have some samples that you can send us to show us that you do, in fact, have a practice. It doesn't have to be an enormous practice. You can also be a professional arts practitioner. Now, I always have questions about this, just precisely what that means. An arts practitioner is one of those terms where it's perhaps not entirely obvious what it means, but it's also not obvious that there's a better term for it. What we mean by that is somebody who works in the arts and whose work benefits the arts, but is not themselves an artist. Somebody who works in arts administration, perhaps, or somebody who's a lighting technician, we'll say, for theatre, is an arts practitioner. You can't have theatre without lighting. It's very important. But they're generally not considered artists. But because their work contributes to the development of the arts, you can apply if you're an arts practitioner. You have to be resident in the Republic of Ireland. Now, there's a small caveat to that. You are allowed to apply if you're not resident in the Republic of Ireland, but you will then have to show how your application will benefit the arts in the Republic of Ireland. Now, that's in addition to having to show that it's developmental and that it meets the purpose of the award, and all the other things you'll have to show. You will, in addition to that, have to show that it will benefit the arts in the Republic of Ireland for your application. I can tell you now it's a very high bar. I'm not going to say it's impossible. I'm not going to say don't bother applying. You absolutely can apply if you're not resident in the Republic of Ireland, but I will say that is a high bar to clear, and some years nobody clears it at all. And obviously, the last point there, you have to have not received funding as an individual directly from the Arts Council since the 1st of January 2016. That phrase, as an individual, really what that's getting at is if you have applied under your own name and your own ARN, generally you're not going to be eligible. If you've got a project award, if you've got a bursary award, if you've got a Making Great Art award, whatever it might be, you can't apply. The only exception would be if you had applied for, say, a project award when it was really applying as a collective and it wasn't you, it was more than one person, and that'll be very obvious from that application, then that's okay. That doesn't affect an awful lot of people, but that exception is there if the funding you have received was not for you as an individual. So if you have any doubts about a previous application, or you're wondering if you're eligible, please feel free to send us an email. The email address, I put it up at the end, but I can tell you now it's agilityaward@artscouncil.ie. That is a monitored inbox. You might not get a response the same day, but we do try and respond to everybody as quick as we can. Okay, so that's who can apply. Now, who can't apply? I'm kind of laboring the point at this point, but you can't apply if you had funding since the 1st of January. Really just want to make that clear. And again, a person who's not a resident in the Republic of Ireland. And again, I've kind of run through that. There's a little bit more on that in the guidelines, section 1.1 and 1.2, respectively, for those. We'll have more detail on them. An organisation can't apply. Now, that might seem obvious, an arts centre, for instance, is an organisation, can't apply. Galway Arts Centre can't apply, for instance, for an agility award. There's other funding available for organisations. But equally, it would mean a band or an artist's collective can't apply. You can't apply for agility as a band. And equally, if you send in an application that says it's from Cathal Murphy, but really what you're going to do is all about my band this, my band that, etc., etc. Well, that's clearly an organization. So an agility award, remember, is for an individual. It's for you. It's not for the band you play with. It's not for the arts or the arts collective you work with. It's for you. You cannot apply if you're a full-time undergraduate student. And that means if you're an undergraduate student on the 23rd of April at 5:30, you cannot apply. And yes, that includes if you're in your final year and by September you'll be out of college and you'll be, doing your own thing. That still applies. If you're an undergraduate student now at the closing date, you can't apply. If you're looking for support towards fees for postgraduate or higher education, you can't apply. So you can't apply for money to pay your fees. You can't do that. We can't do that. There are other government departments which will. Obviously, Department of Education can cover things like that. There are council grants for that. We can't cover that. You can't get support for something which, if your application is basically something you're supposed to be doing anyway. If you're doing an internship or part of a formal course of study and it involves doing a project, we can't also fund you for that project. You're supposed to be doing that anyway. And finally, if you're a non-professional artist or arts practitioner, in other words, if you're someone who's an artist but not actively pursuing a career in the arts, and to be clear, there's no judgment there. There are thousands and thousands of people in this country who are non-professional artists. I'm a non-professional artist. I like painting. I don't consider myself an artist. I just like painting in my spare time. There are people up and down the country who write or draw or paint or play music in their spare time. That's absolutely fine. But then you're not a professional artist and you can't apply for the Agility Award. You have to be actively pursuing a career in the arts. As I said earlier, you don't have to have got there yet. You just have to be pursuing it. How much can you apply for? Any amount between 1,500 and 5,000. And then, just to be clear, you can't apply for any amounts below 1,500 or above 5,000. If you do, your application will be ineligible and we will not assess it. You'd think that's obvious, but I guarantee you somebody this year will apply for 1,493 euros. I guarantee it. Every year somebody does that. They'll apply for 5,002 euros and we will just say no and it won't be eligible and we won't even assess it. It's a hard cut-off, but it's a very simple number. Now, the obvious exception is artists or arts practitioners with disabilities can include additional personal disability access costs in their application. This is separate. So you could apply for up to 5,000 as an agility award and an additional sum of money for an access cost. If you're not familiar with that phrase, an access cost is simply a cost that is incurred by somebody with a disability that wouldn't be incurred by somebody without a disability. It could be something as simple as a wheelchair ramp, for instance. It could be something that simple. It could be something else. We don't have a prescribed list of what that covers. If you have any questions about that, the best thing to do is to email access@artscouncil.ie. We have a fabulous access team here. Vanessa is the access officer, and there's a lot of really good people here. And if you have questions, you can also email agilityaward@artscouncil.ie if you have questions as well. No problem. And remember, whatever amount you're looking for access is above and beyond. And also, to be clear, when your application is being assessed, the assessors don't see any applications for access costs. So whether or not you're applying for access costs doesn't make you any more or less likely to be successful. So don't worry. If you have access costs, put them in. It's not going to tell against you in any way. What activities can you apply for? Developing your practice. Remember at the start, we said agility is a developmental award. So anything that develops your practice, you can apply for. That can include developing or acquiring technical skills. If you want to go and do a course with somebody, a professional development course, if it's a new technique in your field, if you need to travel to do that, if you need to go to Italy to study with some particular painter or musician or wherever you have to go, or maybe they have to come to your house or whatever it is, if there's travel costs associated with that, if there's fees, all of that, you can apply for that. Learning new skills related to your practice, researching or developing a new idea for future presentation. That might seem to be a very fancy way of simply saying, I want to spend time in my studio working on my practice. I want to work on some ideas. I want to do some research. I want to develop it. I want to throw some ideas around and see what happens. That's entirely legitimate. You'd need to flesh it out a bit. You can't just say you want to spend time in your studio, but you don't have to have a mentor. You don't have to have someone who's going to teach you. You can if you want, if it's relevant, that's great. But you're not disadvantaged or advantaged by having a collaborator or a mentor. These are all possible things. You can work with a mentor or collaborator to develop your skills or to develop an idea. It could be, rather than learning a new skill, it could be, for instance, if you're a playwright, you might want to work with a dramaturge to work on this particular scene or a particular play that I'm working on. I need to develop this work. That's developing a work. And developing an idea in collaboration with a potential production, pardon me, I'm tripping over that sentence. Developing an idea in collaboration with a potential production partner. If you've, again, for instance, if you were a playwright and you were going to work with the local theatre group to workshop some scenes with an eye to maybe next year producing a play, that would be developing an idea in collaboration with a potential production partner. It could be talking to a gallery. It could be working with a production studio. It could be anything. We also now, to be clear, that's not a prescribed list. These are just samples of things you could apply for. We also consider proposals that are a combination of activities. It doesn't have to be just one thing. You can apply to do more than one thing. However, I would simply urge you to consider the budget we're talking about is a max of €5,000. Now, €5,000 is a nice amount of money, but it's not enormous. And be careful of spreading it too thin. If you apply for 5 or 6 different things, you run the risk of maybe spreading the butter a little bit too thin, and then you'll run into feasibility problems, or questions at least, where we are wondering, is it realistic to do all of the things you have said you're going to do for that budget? You might be better off being more judicious in what you're putting in and doing a very well researched and written proposal for 1 or 2 things rather than trying to spread it wide. But if you can do it, if you can get in 3 or 4 things and they're all feasible, that's absolutely fine. You're not going to be scored poorly simply because you had more than one activity. You can absolutely have more than one. The costs you can apply for. The very first thing you can apply for, obviously, is your own time as an artist or arts practitioner. The whole point of this is that you are a professional artist and you are working in the field. Will pay yourself. Now, that simply begs the next question: how much should I pay myself? Now, if you have a look in the guidelines, there is a link in there to the Paying the Artist policy, which is on our website, which is helpful, but it's not going to give you all the answers, because obviously the answer everybody wants to their question is, the question everybody wants answered is, what rate am I paying myself? And the answer to that is, we're not going to tell you a rate. But I can tell you this: you don't have to be out there on $12.50 an hour. Don't try to pay yourself minimum wage. You don't have to do that. Equally, don't say that you're going to pay yourself, €200 an hour. That's not realistic. But as long as you're costing your time at a realistic level, the single best thing I can suggest is research your peers. Ask peers in your own art form, whatever that is, what do they charge? What would they expect? What is a daily rate, an hourly rate, whatever. If you're proposing that you're going to spend 2 days a week for 10 weeks working on this project in your studio, cost that up at a certain rate a day and put it in. And as I say, you don't have to be out there on minimum wage doing this. That's not a requirement. You're allowed to pay yourself a reasonable amount of money. You can pay any mentor who helps you achieve the aims of your proposal. As I touched on earlier, if someone's going to teach you a new skill or going to work with you on a project, whatever it is, they can be paid, and that's absolutely fine. Do make sure when you're costing payments, if there is VAT on those payments, make sure to include it. So if especially a lot of people who are applying for Agility Award, will be by definition earlier on in their careers and will probably not be registered for VAT themselves. A lot of artists aren't, and that's totally fine. That's nothing that you don't have to be. But if you're looking for mentorship for somebody who is registered for VAT, they might be charging you VAT, and just make sure that whatever cost it is including the VAT, because it's a pitfall people can fall into. They'll quote for the cost of the mentorship, but not the VAT, and then of course it won't be covered. The VAT won't be covered. Any individual organization or group collaborating with you on your proposal, if you have studio rental, for instance, to an organization or that kind of thing, whatever it might be, anything that's a legitimate cost for your activity is fine. National or international professional training opportunities, such as a workshop or a masterclass, it can't be part of a formal education program. It can't be, if it's a QQI accredited course or a FETAC certificate or obviously a degree or something like that, we can't fund that. There's other government supports for that kind of thing. But if this is a masterclass in glass blowing and you want to, or something to do with your painting style or whatever it might be, in whatever art form, that's absolutely fine. Equipment and materials, including, in brackets, including software and musical instruments. Software technically, I suppose, isn't equipment, but we include it there to help you develop your practice. But please note this cannot be more than 15% of the overall amount that you request. And the reason for that limit is that buying stuff is not in and of itself developmental. As any musician will tell you, owning a guitar does not make you better at playing the guitar. Learning to play the guitar, that's the developmental part. However, obviously you can't learn to play the guitar if you don't have a guitar. So you are allowed to spend money on equipment and materials, including software and so on, but it can't be more than 15% of the amount you request. Now, bear in mind, please, this is a hard limit. It's 15%. It's not 16%. It's not 15.5 or 15% plus 25 cents. It's 15%. Do the maths in advance. And please bear in mind, it's not 15% of 5,000 euros. It's 15% of the overall amount that you request. If your overall amount is less than 5,000 euros, the 15% will be less. I'll save you a bit of time now. 15% of 5,000 euros is 750 euros. 15% of 4,000 euros is 600 euros. Keep it to a nice round figure and make your maths easier. But everybody at this day and age has a calculator. You have a phone that has a calculator on it. Your laptop has a calculator. Do the maths. Get someone to check it for you. Don't ask for more than 15%. If you do, it'll be ineligible. And obviously at the end, additional access costs for work by artists or arts practitioners with disabilities. And just to be clear, those additional access costs can also be, it doesn't have to be just you, the applicant. If you're collaborating with someone who has access costs, or you're getting a mentor who has access costs, that can be included as well. Those are all personal access costs. To be, just in case there's any confusion, we say personal access costs to distinguish from audience access costs. If you were going to present an artwork which would involve access costs for members of the audience, that would be audience access costs. You cannot apply for that with Agility, because that will be more about a project award, that kind of thing. With Agility, remember, it's always about developing you. It's not about your audience. It's about you and how you develop. What can you not apply for? Sorry, Martin. Did you? No, sorry, never mind. I thought someone said something there. What can you not apply for? You can't apply for activities that do not develop your practice, your skills, or your work. We kind of touched on that. You can't apply for anything that's better suited to other awards offered by the Arts Council. What that means is if you apply with a good application, but we read it and we think, this should probably be a bursary award, or actually maybe this would be better as a DESH recording application for trad music, we will contact you and tell you, you should probably withdraw this and send it into this other award. We will tell you that. You can't apply if you've been previously assessed, for activities that have been previously assessed, unless you can show you have developed your proposal significantly. Right, what does that mean? What that means is if you applied last year with an activity and you got assessed and you didn't get funded, you can't just come back in this year with the same proposal with just the dates changed. That's the same thing. You got it assessed, you weren't successful, you have to develop. Now, unless you can show you've developed your proposal significantly, well, what does that mean? That's significantly is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence. That's kind of for you to show us that it's significant. Pardon me, I'm just going to take a drink. Sorry, I'm tripping over myself. If, for instance, you applied last year to music and you were going to record 4 songs for your second album, and we assessed it and you scored well, but you didn't get funded, you cannot come back this year and say, I'm going to record 4 songs for my second album. That's the same application. But if you were to come back to us and say, well, I went away and I actually recorded 2 of those songs already myself, and one of them wasn't great, so I got rid of it. But now I've written 3 other ones, and the project is taking a little bit of a turn, and now I'm working with a collaborator, and we're going to include that. Okay, well, that's a significant change. That's now effectively a new activity. What we're saying here is you're allowed to come back with the same idea. You don't have to throw the idea in the bin just because you weren't successful, but you have to be able to show that you went away in the meantime and developed it significantly. You can't apply for activities that could be supported by other government agencies, such as Culture Ireland, Creative Ireland, Screen Ireland, etc., etc. Basically, if you're supposed to be applying to the Design and Crafts Council, then you have to apply to the Design and Crafts Council, and we can't fund you. We will tell you if that's the case. If you apply here and in fact, really, you should be applying to somewhere else, we'll let you know. You can't apply for activities that have already taken place because by definition, you didn't need the money to do them. They've already happened. It's not a retrospective award. This isn't a prize for making art. It is something you're going to do that will be developmental. You can't apply for costs towards formal education. We kind of touched on that. QQI accredited course, a degree, you can't apply for that. Any fees for higher education or study, we can't do that. Professional membership fees or annual subscriptions, such if you want to pay membership fee to the VAI, we can't cover that. And capital costs, such as building improvement or renovation works. Now, God knows you wouldn't get much capital costs out of €5,000, but that's not something we can fund. You might get a bit of a studio renovation out of €5,000. We're not going to do that. That's improvement or renovation works. Again, that's not developmental. That would be a separate thing. Supporting documents. Now, the supporting documents, we've been trying to reduce the amount of supporting documents you have to submit year on year. You have to submit your application form. If you don't submit an application form, you don't actually have an application at all. So that's the first thing. You have to fill out the application form. The application form is available online. You get it through once you log into the OLS, you can download it. In addition to the application form, we need the following. First of all, your full CV or biography as a separate document. And I'm saying as a separate document because in the application form, there is a section called Tell Us About Yourself. It's about 150 words, something like that, where you're going to give us the reduced CV. You're going to say, who are you? What makes you tick? Where are you coming from? Where are you going? As an artist, who are you? But you may want to tell us more than that because it's quite limited. And this is your opportunity to do that. It's either a CV or a biography. It doesn't have to be both. And it's your artistic CV. We don't need to know that you worked at Extravision for 3 years in the 1990s. We don't need that. We need to know, what is your art CV? Did you go to art college? Have you got a qualification? How many shows have you done? This kind of thing. It's your art CV. We need 1 to 3 examples of your work that are relevant to your proposal. We don't want more than 3. Please don't send us in 15 images. If we get 2,000 people applying for this and they each send us 15 images, we don't have the time to look at them all. We just don't. We don't have the space to store them. They have to be your work. Don't send us in reference images that somebody else did that you're going to make something that's like that. We don't want to see that. It has to be your work. And it has to be relevant to your proposal. So don't just send us in the last great thing you did, unless that's somehow relevant to your proposal. We're more interested in something that's relevant to your proposal than something that's necessarily maybe better in some way, but less relevant. Bear in mind, these don't have to be finished samples. You could send in, here are the sketches I'm doing for this body of work I'm working on at the moment. Here's some original sketches. Those are samples of your work as well. It doesn't have to be finished work. Here's an early version of this operetta I'm working on. It isn't finished yet, but you can see where I'm going with it. That's a sample of your work. And just a word about links to sharing platforms. if you have video work, it could be that you're a videographer, or you've made a short film, or it could be simply a video of you performing. It could be you at the theater and someone took a video of it. That's fine. You want to send that in as an example of your work. You can obviously just upload it as a video file. You can do that through the OLS, but you can also send a link if you have it on a sharing platform. Now, a sharing platform, to be clear, that means something like YouTube or Vimeo or SoundCloud or Bandcamp. Now, that's not an exhaustive list. There aren't, there's dozens of sharing platforms out there. What it doesn't include is something like Google Drive. Do not send us a link to Google Drive. We won't open it. It also doesn't include Spotify. It doesn't include anything where you have to register an account to listen to it or to see it. If we require an assessor to register and give over their personal details in order to look at something, we're not going to accept that. So Spotify you can't use. If you're in any doubt, if you have if you have your work on a particular platform and you're wondering, is it okay? Fire a question into reception or fire a question into agilityaward@artscouncil.ie and we'll let you know pretty quick. As I said, please don't fire that in the last 2 days. We can't promise to get back to you because we will be snowed under. And if you do want to send in links, simply, do you know what? I'll talk about that in a second because there's something specific I want to say. Now, eligibility. Your application will not be eligible if any of these. If you didn't upload it through the online services funding platform, if you missed the deadline, if you don't meet the criteria in section 1.2, that's who can apply. If you're somebody who can't apply, it's not eligible. If you didn't complete all the required parts, if you didn't provide the supporting material, so if you just don't give us a CV, it's not eligible. If you received funding since the 1st of January 2016, if you didn't provide your supporting material in a specified format, if you upload a file type that we don't support, in the guidelines, there's a big list of every file type that we support, and it's loads. There's loads of things we support, but maybe there's some obscure sound file that we mightn't support. Please check and transfer it into something that we can listen to. Ask for more or less than the allowed amounts. Applied for activities or costs not covered by the award. If it's better suited to an award, a different award, we'll let you know. Or if it's better suited to another government body or public body. All of those are grounds for ineligibility. And what ineligibility means is we will not assess your application. We will say you're ineligible. You can't apply because of one of these reasons. So you're not going to be assessed. Thanks for your time. Please try again next year. Common mistakes for people applying. The first one is, and so many of these come back to supporting documents, not uploading supporting documents. Linksfahren, which is simply a very silly bilingual German pun, which Linksfahren simply means drive on the left. But it's about links. The amount of people who send us links that don't work. You send in a link which is meant to be your video on YouTube and we click on it and there's nothing there because you've updated it since and now it's a different link. Or someone who sends us a link to something different completely. We've had people send in links to The Guardian because they simply copied and pasted the wrong tab and they've sent us the wrong link by accident. Or they've sent us a link and they've accidentally deleted the last letter off it, so now it's no longer valid. The best thing to do when sending in links is copy the link, put it in a Word document, send it to a friend of yours first, send it to someone else and ask them to click on it and check if it works. Don't ever assume it'll work. Send it to someone else, see if it works, and when you know it does, then you can upload it. Applying for too much or too little, as I said, every year somebody will apply for very slightly more or less. They'll apply for €5,015 and we'll just say no, ineligible, you can't do it. Please make sure also with the equipment, somebody will apply for equipment worth more than 15%. Please check those maths. Not uploading supporting documents. A picture of a cat. When you're uploading a picture, you're uploading a picture of your artwork. You're uploading some photographs of your gallery show last year, but you're actually not. You've uploaded a picture of a cat instead. This happens more than you think. When you're preparing your documents for upload, look, everybody has different ways of doing it, and there's no one right way to do it, but I would recommend that you make a folder on your desktop called Agility Award Application 2026. And into that folder, you put the things that you intend to upload, because everybody's familiar with trying to upload something and your computer will open an upload box, and the first place it looks is in your downloads folder. And your downloads folder has thousands of things in it, and then you're there looking for the right one. Please make sure that you make it easy on yourself. Make sure the files you send us are actually the files you intended to send us. Because if you send us the wrong one, we're not going to get back to you and say, hey, by the way, it looks like you sent us the wrong file. We're not going to do that. It's your job to send us the right file by the deadline. As I said earlier, you have 7 weeks, you've loads of time, but make sure you make it as easy for yourself as possible. Not enough detail to assess in the proposal. Fill the space available. There's a big section on the application form called a summary of your proposal, and then a much bigger one called details of your proposal. That is the meat and potatoes of the application. Fill that space. I think you can write 900 words or something like that. It's quite big. It's a big chunk of space. And every year I will see people putting in 1 or 2 lines into that space. There's nothing to assess. Someone who says, hey, I want to spend time in my studio developing my painting about mountains. Okay, but that doesn't tell what is your style. What are you doing? Where are you coming from? Tell us why you're doing this project. What does it mean to you? Are you responding to something? Is this something personal? Is it something that's going on in the world? Who are your influencers? Who influenced your practice? Where do you want to go with this? Fill the space available. Don't just write 1 or 2 lines, because it will score it won't be ineligible, but it will score very poorly. Missing the deadline. Again, the deadline is weeks away, but it is 5:30. If our system clock gets to 5:30 and you're not in, then you're not in. And if your system clock is a few seconds out from our system clock, it doesn't matter. It's ours that's important. If you have everything uploaded at 5:29 and 48 seconds and you haven't quite clicked submit yet at 5:30, you're late, and we won't let you in. It's a hard deadline, and we have to have it that way to make it fair for everybody. So please make sure. Now, I know I'm saying this, and I guarantee 1/3 of the people are going to apply on the last day, because that's what always happens. But I would urge you not to be one of them. There's no penalty if you get it in at 5:29 and 50 seconds. That's fine. You don't lose any marks for that. You're just making life harder for yourself, and it's just a lot of stress. Incomplete application form. Where there's a text box, write text in it. Where there's tick boxes, tick the box you have to tick, whatever it might be. Make sure you don't leave any blanks, because blank spaces on the application form can mean that it won't upload properly and it'll be corrupted. And then we're going to say to you, I'm sorry, you didn't have a valid application form. Your application is ineligible. Now, tick the boxes, only tick the boxes you have to tick. If you're asked to tick 1 of 3 boxes, then just tick 1 of them. Don't tick 2, tick 1. And finally, not uploading supporting documents. Number 3, sorry, that should say number 3. Everyone is familiar with this problem, I think. You're working on your CV. Now, certainly anyone who works in digital art will know this intimately, but it applies to anybody else. You're working on your CV on your laptop and you save it as CV. And then you open it up again on your desktop later on from your Google Drive or something, and you save it again, but now you save it as CV1. And then you work it again, and then you have a final version, and then you open up an earlier version and you change it a bit. And by the time you're finished, you've got 37 different versions of your CV. And then you upload the wrong one, the one that you're not happy with. Again, make it easy on yourself. Do yourself a favor. When you have the version of the CV or the biography or the image files or whatever it is that you're happy with, call it something sensible. Call it Cathal Murphy CV April 2025. Put it in that folder on your desktop so that when it comes time to upload it, you know exactly what version you're putting in. Because again, we've had people say, oh, I didn't send you the latest version of my CV that included this other qualification that I got recently. Can I add it in now? No, you can't. You have to get it right the first time. Do yourself a favor and make your files, call them something sensible. Finally, after you get your decision, remember, first of all, I'm going to tell you now, not every application that is eligible and good can be funded. We always receive far more applications than we can support. We're going to get over 1,000 applications for this. Somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 is what I'm expecting. And okay, a very small amount of them won't be that great, but most of them are very good. And if we had the money, we'd happily fund them all. We just don't have the money. So if you get a response that says, unfortunately, you haven't been funded, that doesn't mean we're telling you you're rubbish or that you should give up or that your art is terrible. All we're saying is that on this occasion, other applications scored higher than yours. That's all we're saying. We're not even saying anything about this particular application other than that someone else scored high. Every year there are people who apply with objectively very good applications who don't get funded because other people scored higher. Remember, it is absolutely it's a competitive context. You are in competition with everyone else. Now, I notice I have written in 2025 we received, and then I haven't actually written in the number of applications we received. I had it to add in, so I apologize. I didn't add it in. I'm not going to guess what it is, but I will go and check that. The contact address, contact email is agilityaward@artscouncil.ie. You can also email reception@artscouncil.ie or access@artscouncil.ie if you have an access query. And I just remains to say the very best of luck with your application.